An understanding of few fundamental recording practices and procedures used in standard recording sessions will help in planning and in overall organization of a recording project. The basic equipment used in the tracking and overdubbing sessions is microphones, preamps, a mixing console, outboard processing, and a recording device. Nowadays, usually a digital audio interface and a computer running recording software like Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, Digital Performer, etc. The choice of the recording studio for the project often largely depends on the quality of the equipment that the studio offers. In making the studio facility choices based on the equipment quality, one should remember that the audio signal flow chain is not as good as its highest quality piece, but is as weak as its lowest quality piece. Also, the recording software compatibility with other recording facilities may be a consideration as well. If the project is perhaps to be recorded in several different facilities, or if it is to be mixed in another studio, it is important that all the chosen facilities have the same recording software available, so the project's tracks can easily be transferred from one facility to another. Now, while conversion between different recording software systems is possible, it is time-consuming and represents an unnecessary planning and budgetary burden. The recording process itself is controlled by a recording engineer from a room referred to as the control room, often supported by an assistant engineer. An assistant usually sets up the microphones, patches the signal, and operates the recording software. A recording engineer operates the mixing console and the outboard processing equipment, controls the recording and monitoring signal flow, and makes all the decisions regarding the recording levels and the signal quality. The recording musicians normally record from a room referred to as the studio, which is acoustically isolated from the control room. Verbal communication between the studio and the control room is normally done through the system where the musicians would hear the control room in their headphones when needed via the control room microphone, and the control room personnel would hear the musicians through its monitor speakers via the microphones set up in the studio for the recording. Visual contact, if needed, is maintained either through the glass partition between the studio and the control room, or via the video monitoring system where the cameras and the video monitors are set up in both rooms. Now, while most of the recording equipment can be set up ahead of the musician's arrival to the recording session, microphone positioning, recording level setup, and signal quality adjustments need to be done with musicians in their recording places playing their instruments. In addition, musicians need to have some music and tempo reference present in their headphones while recording. Plus, they need to hear their own sound in the headphones as well. For the initial recording sessions, a software-generated click track is used as a tempo reference, and usually a recorded pilot vocal as a melodic and song form reference. Once the tracks being recorded this way are done, those tracks could then be used as additional monitoring reference for the subsequent sessions where reference tracks are needed. Positioning the microphones, adjusting the recording signal levels, modifying the reference tracks, and setting up the needed monitoring levels takes time, and it should be taken into consideration when planning the sessions. It should also be noted that the recording sessions involving drums or instruments needing amps like electric bass and guitar require longer preparation times than most of the other sessions. In case of drums, in addition to setting up and tuning the drums set itself, multiple microphones need to be positioned and their recording levels and signal quality adjusted before recording can commence. In case of electric basses and guitars, their amps need to be set up, instruments tuned, desired amp tone setting found, direct-to-console signal adjusted, microphones positions, and microphone signal adjusted prior to recording of the tracks. Also, due to often excessive sound levels produced by the drums, electric basses, and electric guitars, The reference tracks monitoring adjustment usually takes more time than with other instruments, so keep that in mind. In addition to all the above considerations, one should also understand that virtually no track is done on the first take, and that it normally takes multiple recordings of the same track to complete it. Plus, each track is usually not recorded all at once, but is split into sections to be recorded one at a time. This choice of sections partitions would ideally be done ahead of the musician's arrival, but since it is often dependent on the musician's performance itself, it is usually done during the session. Also, each take of each section needs to be heard back after it is recorded, and the decision needs to be made if a retake is needed and with what revisions. All of this takes extra time, and experienced record producers plan and schedule their sessions with all of the above procedural parameters in mind. When the scheduling of the basic tracking and overdubbing is completed, the mixing and mastering sessions must be planned and scheduled as well. Now, mixing may be done in the same studio where the recording was done, or in another facility specializing in mixing may be engaged. Either way, it is advisable to allow for a week or two between the planned end of the recording process and the beginning of the mixing stage in case the recording sessions take longer than expected. The amount of time that should be allotted for mixing is largely the function of the complexity of the project and the available budget. While some projects can be mixed at the rate of 2 to 3 songs per day, others might take a week or more per song. The mixing process consists of combining the recorded individual instrumental and vocal tracks into a stereo track or into surround sound tracks if the project requires it. The equipment normally needed for this process is a mixing console, outboard processing equipment, and nowadays a computer running a multi-track audio software. The recorded tracks are played back by the software, flow out through the mixing console and the outboard processing equipment, and back into the software where they're combined into the final stereo track. The adjustments made to the individual tracks in the process of mixing can be numerous or minimal depending on the project. The mastering stage, which is the next stage, is scheduled subsequent to mixing and takes considerably less time than the mixing stage. Less complex and lower budget album projects are sometimes mastered in just a day or two, while others may take same time per song. Mastering is the final stage of the recording production and should produce the final product ready for duplication, sale, and broadcast. The pre-production, therefore, consists of planning and organization of the whole subsequent recording production process, including the selection of the repertoire to be recorded, acquisition of relevant licenses and permits, creation of the arrangements, contracting of the recording studio and the musicians, scheduling of all the sessions, and of course, the budgeting of the entire project based on those plans, or planning the whole process based on the given budget, depending on the situation. In general, it can be said that the recording production process thus consists of 5 stages: pre-production, tracking, overdubbing, mixing, and mastering.